Now, you were one half of a very successful partnership in Two Dope Queens. Um, what was the experience like transitioning kind of out of that, out of the thing that people knew you
Mhm.
for the most?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing was when we started doing shows together, like into 2014, like I've been doing stand up and like that, that was still my goal was like get a late night set, get a 1 hour special on TV. So like Two Dope Queens was never anything other than oh, this is something we just enjoy doing. Like we love like having a show where it's, predominantly women, people of color, people from the queer community. Like that's just we were having a ball with it. And so when I saw like, oh yeah, this is turning into something else, let's try and get it on like HBO. And that was really fun. And so sort of transitioning out of that, I think for me, I was always kind of like, I always wanted to have the imprint. I always wanted to do the stand-up stuff. I also always wanted to like to develop my own TV show projects. So for me, it was sort of like this is just one section of like my Wikipedia that has like come to a close and now I'm starting something else. And I think what's been really great is that I had so much goodwill from Two Dope Queens that people were really sort of like welcome me with open arms and sort of like, allowing me to do things that I want to do creatively and not sort of being like, oh no, but you're the Two Dope Queens girl. That's like all you do. Like people really were just like, we really love you guys. We want to see what's next. So I think I'm in a very lucky position that that was sort of the energy around that show.
Were you ever reluctant because it was so successful? Did you ever go through thinking as you were, ending it, like, "Ooh, should we really be ending this?" Because
Yeah.
you ended it on a high note with the HBO specials.
Yeah. I always feel like I rather dip out before I overstay my welcome. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of times, like some people ask me, like, "Oh, do you think you and Just whatever go back and do it?" And I'm like, it just was the time period that we captured it in, where it was like the indie comedy scene was sort of changing, where we were like on the cusp of like a lot of shows were now like being run by predominantly people of color, and sort of we sort of tapped into this audience that really felt like stand up wasn't for them because it was just white guys on stage. So they've been like, oh, I shouldn't go to stand up show because I'm not going to see anyone like me telling jokes. And I feel like it just really captured a specific time in our careers and sort of like what the comedy scene was. So I try to like not look back and just always try and just build. So for me, I didn't necessarily feel nervous or scared. I was just like, I just hope that whatever I do down the line has a similar positive impact that Two Dope Queens has. Like of everything, the HBO-ness of it all, like the fun clothes we got to wear. What I'm the proudest of is the amount of women, people of color, queer people who are on the show, the amount of women who were behind the scenes. Our first season was directed by Tig Notaro. I felt like we did such a good job of having a really talented group of people around us. And then Amy Aniobi, who's a writer and executive producer on Insecure, wrote on like the first batch of specials. So I'm like, that is what I want to carry through. And so that is what I try never like try and compare myself to the past, but I'm like, that is the standard. It's like, if I'm not doing the work of making this a space where anyone can be employed here, then that's when I know I'm failing.
You also have your third book coming out. Please don't sit on my bed in your outside clothes, which
Yes.
is an African proverb for those listening and may not have
Yeah.
known that. May not have known that. Compared to your other two books that you wrote, including Everything's Trash, which I love, how did this writing process differ from the writing process of your two previous books?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote this entirely during COVID. And I returned the dining room table into my desk. So that's where I wrote. Um, and I think by my third book, I think the first book is sort of you're like, oh my God, this is so hard. I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. And then you get through it and you're like, I don't know how I did that. And then the second book, you're like, you have like a little more confidence. And I think with the third book, I was just sort of like, I know what my voice is. I know the stories that I want to write about. I know how to tell those stories in a way that's entertaining. And so I think it was probably the most enjoyable writing experience, but it's still just writing a book is just hard. It's never going to be easy, you know? And so sort of trying to write while you're quarantining and sort of, I think the biggest thing was mentally was sort of battling like, why am I writing a book? Like the world is falling apart. Who gives a shit? And then like, oh, I'm glad I'm writing this book because I'm writing these like funny essays and it's like making me laugh. And so it's just that back and forth of like just feeling like nothing matters and everything matters at the same time. And I'm sure that's how a lot of people were during COVID. When you're working, you're sort of feeling like, is this resonating? Is this what I should be doing with my time? Like, but it's like I'm not an essential worker. Like no one needs me in a hospital, like trying to, that's not where I belong. I belong trying to like make people laugh. So just like lean into that and don't feel like bad about doing that.
I don't mean this in a flippant way, but for a comedian, is COVID providing good material?
I mean, for me, you know, in my special that I taped, I had like one mention of COVID, but for me, I know there are a lot of comics who are like trying to tackle it, and I'm just like, we're still in it. Like, I just don't know if like audiences are now leaving their homes to go to stand-up shows. Like, I don't know if that's like necessarily what they want to hear about. So for me, it's not particularly interesting for me to talk about something that we're all still trying to survive. And so I really want to talk about other things. And yeah, but I think every comic is different. I think there are certainly comics who are like, whatever is like the most sort of like topic of the day, that's the thing that I want to tackle. And that's just not my vibe. Yeah.
Well, I guess in another way, you are, you know, during the pandemic, everybody's spending so much time at home, maybe reconnecting with family. Does it provide material in that way? Because you're probably back in touch with parts of your life that may have gone a little dormant.
Yeah, of course. I definitely like FaceTiming with the family, and, you know, my boyfriend's family's they're all back in the UK. So it's like, there's a lot of like staying in touch with them. There's a lot of like, you know, being like, oh yeah, I should like not like disappear on my friends the way that I was doing before. So I think that has been sort of the biggest shift, is that I'm actually, you know, making time for the people that I care about in my life instead of just being like, it's work and everything comes after work. It's like, girl, come on. No, you gotta respect the people that are there for you. So that's been the biggest change, I think.